I think the title is interesting of the chat because it's about ecoliteracy, and that's a word that I don't think many people use or are familiar with. And as an educator, as you know in academia, you start to get really nerdy about the words, and sustainability, and environmental education, and education for sustainability, and ecoliteracy aren't synonyms, they're different things. So ecoliteracy per se is about understanding fundamental ecological principles and then using that to create sustainable human communities. So we get quite particular about what the word is, and then out of all that we have to think, right, what structures do we need, what do the lessons need to look like, what spaces do we need to have in the classroom, what experiences do the children have to have in order to change their mindsets. And I think we're kind of almost at opposite ends of the spectrum, because I'm starting with the raw product and trying to change that, whereas you're picking up the sort of end products and trying to make us understand that we can use those in better ways. So really, really importantly is this is not greenwashing. Right? Recycling is a fantastic thing, but it's after the products have been produced. We're trying to get right back to the source here and say we need to change the children from the ground up so that when they exit from my school, like, they don't get a gold star for recycling, it's the default mode. You know, how are we still considering children to have a job of switching off the light? You might have children who they have a line leader and a light switcher offer and a tap turner offer. How are those still even things? That should be default mode. If it's not default mode already, then we are in trouble. So the idea from our school is to try and educate so that we change from this anthropocentric view, humans at the centre, to an ecocentric view where we are part of the network. And so experiential learning is then really important because it takes that, we know how to teach stuff, right? We know how to teach reading, we know how to teach maths, we know how to teach science, but unless you can connect that to an authentic, transfer your learning to an authentic context, then it's not really useful knowledge. So the experiential part is about taking it from knowing to know-how. And so that's what it will look like. So the youngest ones, yes, they're playing in the mud, yes, they're outside playing with animals, yes, they're working in the gardens, but it's really just transferring the knowledge or loading up with ammunition so that when they get slightly older, they can transfer the knowledge. As it gets older in my school, it's a bit more sophisticated than mud pies and playing outside. It becomes thoughtful questions, it becomes understanding how equity and global environmental justice fit into this process. So it's a lot of play for the little ones, and then it gets more sophisticated as we go up to try and achieve that aim. If you weren't aware of the Dubai education market, it's really competitive. So essentially, private education has supplanted, replaced what in most countries is offered by government. So as any capitalist market would do it in segments, so everyone can find a niche. And so you've got, my school is the British curriculum school, you can find another 50 British curriculum schools or more. So then, of course, the point is, how do I be different in amongst this market, because that gives me a competitive edge. And I think the answer for us has actually been stop competing. I'm not in competition with school A or school B or school C down the road. This is what we do, and here's our purpose. And if we live true to our purpose, then people will come to us. And I guess that's been our statement from the beginning, is we will collaborate with anyone, because anyone can replace this bit of my school, or they could duplicate that bit of my school. But if I put the sum total of the activities that we do, that then becomes our strategy and purpose, because you can't duplicate the fact that I have a biodome which connects to my farm, which connects to a project-based learning, which connects to the chef, which connects to our purpose. That part you can't replicate, and that is then my strategy and my speciality. I've got no problem collaborating around that, and I guess that's the same. Anyone could do something similar, I guess. They can come up with the idea, but if you are willing to collaborate and then hold your higher purpose up there, people can't replicate what you've got as a sum total, which becomes then your differentiator. I guess that's my take.
Yeah, and I think also what I love about what I've read on the Arbor School is that you sort of look for so many opportunities to engage with your community through your parents' cafe and through yoga and through like a store, like a little soup. And I mean, you're really trying to expand your value in so many different ways, and that's really a nice service sort of orientation.
Well, more than service, most research would say for children that, like you said, they will change overnight to become eco-warriors. They will bug you as parents to stop buying plastic bags, and they will bug you to switch off lights. They're really quick to change, but the majority of their knowledge needs to be supplemented by their values and their actions. And the majority of that, the research would say, comes from home. So if I don't reach to the community and try and change mindsets in the community, I'll never achieve our vision. So actually the idea of bringing a community in is not because I want to show off our fantastic facilities, it's because I want to build a community that are like-minded. So why yoga, why permaculture, why fashion shows, they're not just because I want to show off, it's because I want. When we were talking about ecoliteracy or ecological principles, this is really important because some of those principles are that energy flows from the sun and recycles within the system. It's never lost, sometimes lost. But secondly is that we're resilient in our diversity and our links. That's how we collaborate, that's why we collaborate. And then at any point an ecosystem collapses, you have emergence. These are inherent properties of an ecosystem. So when our systems collapsed over the last couple of years, it's no surprise that we had emergence where people were willing to link and connect and show their creativity. So this little collection of people and these two fabulous startups are like illustrations of ecoliteracy in practice. First of all, like when you picture hippy dippy, you think kids playing in the mud, running around, having a blast, carefree. Well, what's the opposite? You want them sitting in rows set up staring at the board when they're 5 years old? Of course not. So in a way, I'm glad when people say that about me, but just because I'm eco-literate doesn't stop me from being literate. So number one is purpose doesn't mean that we forget the other bits. Secondly, profit's a measure of sustainability, right? If I am not profitable as a school, we're a profit-making school, it's a measure of sustainability. It doesn't mean I have to, again, trade off one against the other. You can have both, surely. I've got my cake and eat it too. So if we're not profitable, we will be out of business in a year. So I have sort of two masters to hold on to. Parents struggle with that a little bit, to be fair. I understand it because, it doesn't gel well with a social good like education, but it's a measure of sustainability. Thirdly is I'm too small to make a difference. That's an important one in education particularly because we have a no disasters until age 10. There's no point teaching a 5-year-old about global warming or the disaster of global warming. There's no point teaching them about coral bleaching because they don't have their centre of power, their location of power. It's too far away. They have a learned helplessness, and if we keep doing it, they will learn helplessness. So we create small actions that they can do. So we compost locally, or we recycle our food scraps. We do things where they can have success. And then I think if I come right around to the business part of it, I'm sorry to say that recycling is too late. Recycling is the end of this game. This is about the circular economy. This is changing. So my children aren't there to learn about recycling. They're not there to learn about how to look after animals. It's not a farm school. We are trying to change them from an anthropocentric worldview to an ecocentric worldview where we are part of this, and therefore what's good for me is good for the environment, is good for business. And if we don't change that mindset from the ground up, then we'll always be trying to rescue this with recycling. It is too late for recycling. The bus is already off the edge of the cliff, like we talked about this. So we actually need a change in our economic models. We need a change in our governance models. We need federal level intervention to say, no more plastic, not recycled plastic, no more plastic. And I'm not silly to think that there's utopian decisions where we just make that and everyone's happy. I understand that, so there's probably some trade-offs in there somewhere. But an education system where schools can just bolt on bits like, oh, it's sustainability week, let's have a green council with someone that can be switching off the lights this weekend and we'll make sure we bring all our bottles in. Like that's a bolt on, that's like World Book Day. That would be like not reading all year and then having World Book Day when we bring books. So we need this to be built into what we do, and I'm waxing lyrical here, but I'm passionate about making this change, so it's exciting. And why I say 4 years is because that will be my first graduates. So I'm imagining 4 years that I have these children that have had a journey of curiosity and connection and passion and purpose. And when they leave me as graduates, I will be phenomenally proud if they went to university. I would be phenomenally proud if they could be either of these two, legends right here that have pivoted and started and shown some of that emergence and creativity. I will be proud of them as long as they know what their purpose and passion is. So I've got 4 years as a deadline. That's where I'll be. Straightening up behaviour, because if you have behaviour, values, attitudes and beliefs, behaviour is by far the easiest one to change, by miles. If I draw a line in the sand and I hold it consistently and long enough, behaviours will change. Right, so, in my school, if I said, well, you're no longer allowed to walk on the left, now you have to walk on the right, we would hold that line and we would enforce it until behaviour changed, particularly in children because they're a bit more malleable. If I had to try and change their values, attitudes and beliefs, that's a much, much longer process. So I guess to create behavioural change is we need someone who's willing to draw a line in the sand. And so bottom up, we can do it, but in reality, the fast change, behavioural change, is going to be top down. That would be my statement if you want fast behavioural change. The attitudes, behaviours and belief, that'll come slowly through education, and that certainly is a slow burner. In terms of technology, I'll pass to these two.
All right.